What's up guys, and welcome to my PHP backend tutorial. So I recorded the part 28 and then I realized there was a lot of topics in there which I didn't cover in previous tutorials, and you might get super confused if you don't have the basic knowledge for it. So I made like a list of all the topics that should be covered before you continue to part 28, and I suggest you browse through this list and check if this is news to you. If everything you see in here is like old news, you can just skip immediately to part 28. And I'm gonna go through these before I continue to the next section of the implementation basically. So I have a couple of videos with just theory about what it is that I'm gonna use in the next implementation video. So I'm going to start with the PHP magic methods that I use also in part 28. And you can go to this link right here and read through it. And PHP has some special methods on each class that you can implement. And some of these should be familiar to you. For example, the construct, which is basically the constructor for the class. So this function right here is going to be called whenever you use a keyword new on a class. So the constructor shouldn't be news to you if you're familiar with object-oriented programming. And also we have the destruct, which is you can tell by the name. It's called whenever the object is getting I think it's whenever it's getting garbage collected, but I'm not 100% sure about this. So if you're familiar with C++ programming, you also should be familiar with the destruct notion. And then we also have a couple of others in here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I suggest you look into how call works. And you can skip this for now, and to string, obviously, which is the equivalent of overriding to string in Java or C# or any .NET language, basically. And I'm not sure how it works in Python, but I think you have something similar to that. And also, let's see, invoke. We're going to use invoke in the next tutorial, like part 28. So you can also briefly look into how it works if you're interested. And they have really good examples in here, also of implementation. So I'll put the link also in the description later whenever I upload the video. And so that covers the magic methods of PHP. And then we have HTTP statuses and AE tag. So I don't know if you're familiar with HTTP statuses, but if you're not, I think you might have heard of a 404 not found, which is probably the most known HTTP status. For some reason, I'm not sure why, but maybe it's the most common one that the end user get familiar with whenever they end up on a page that doesn't exist. I don't know, but I'll post this link also in the description. And Wikipedia has a really awesome coverage of all the HTTP statuses. So they're grouped basically into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm not sure about the 6. Yeah, that's something else. But it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically it's 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. So let's have a look at them. So 200 stands for success of any kind. So 200 is okay. And from there it goes into more refined statuses basically. So 200 is always okay, but at 200 is okay, and then it also means that it's graded. And at 202 is that it's okay, but it's also accepted. And yeah, so you kind of increase the granularity of the statuses basically. And yeah, so if you want to making sure that the client know that it's whatever they did with the API, it was okay, but it was also, I don't know, accepted, you should send it to 202. And 204 is pretty common. I've seen that in the wild, you know. And then it goes to the 300 request, which is redirection. And I think the most common here is 301, which is permanently removed. And the browsers will actually redirect you if you return some of these. And also the 304, I want to use this as an example for special attention, because this you can use the 304 not modified for making your API efficient. And I'm going to go through this later, so just keep that in mind. Just remember like 304, and we're going to go through why this actual status is important. And yeah, there's like proxy, and I don't know, I haven't used the other ones. And 400 request, also pretty common, like bad request whenever you do something with the API that you're not allowed to do. So for example, if you post a bad password, you probably would get a 401 unauthorized if you're trying to do something that you're not allowed to do. Payment required, I've never seen. Forbidden, maybe if I try to do something that I'm not allowed to do. 404, not found. That should be familiar to you if you try to access a web page that doesn't exist. Or if you want to do something that you're not allowed to do, or proxy stuff and all the good stuff, you can browse through this if you like. And then there's a server errors whenever the user does anything that is actually correct from a user point of view, but the server fails. It might be bugs most of the time. So this one, I think you have seen this a couple of times. For example, whenever the server guy screws up and the web page is down, you should like get a big H1 font on the web page just saying internal server error. You've probably seen it in the wild. I've seen it a couple of times whenever I try to log in, and then the server guys are doing something with the web page basically, and everything is down, but they don't realize that it's down. And so 500, most common. And I'm not sure about the other ones. Maybe if they're basically, you only see a 500 if somebody screws up. And then we have some of the unofficials you can read through. It's kind of esoteric reading, I guess. Good references as well. You can browse through them. So that's the HTTP statuses, and I'm going to continue where I left off with the not modified header, which is kind of an interesting header, which automatically brings me to the E tag. And what you could do, for example, is that if you have an API and the data doesn't change very frequently, so you have pretty much static data, of course you should be doing some kind of caching where you save the data, so whenever you make a request to the API, you don't have to hit the database every time, because that is pretty inefficient. So that's where you use caches. And you can use the 304 status for, let's say that the data flow for the 304 status will be like this. You make a request from the client, and then the server is going to respond. And with the response, it's going to create a hash. And the hash is going to be hashed from the data that it sends to you. So the client can receive the hash. That is going to be the E tag, basically. And the client might later do the exact same response, or sorry, the exact same request to the server. But the second time it does it, it's gonna send also along the hash, also called the E tag, to the server. So it's gonna be a request from the client with E tag to the server, and the server knows that this actually, this e tag, the hash, it's corresponding to some kind of data that hasn't changed. So there is no need of sending the exact same data twice. So because this transaction, the server knows that the data hasn't changed, so you can just send an empty body back. So it knows no data has changed with the e tag. With the e tag that the client sent. So it sends, it responds. So it responds with an empty body, and the 3 or 4 basically. So if the client gets a 3 or 4 back, it knows that it don't have to resave or update the data, because it knows that the 3 or 4 status means that is not being modified on the server side. So that's what 3 or 4 is basically. And it might be a bit abstract for you right now, but I mean, if you don't get it, it's totally fine. Just skip it. If it's news to you, then it's okay. And also, there's another topic I used. This one is real simple to grasp. I used a double slash in the part 28 right here. And the only reason that I use double slash is because I use it in a text string. So I can't just, the controller right here, if I echo it out, it'll be like app and backward slash controllers like this, and then backward slash something, whatever it's in part 0. And I cannot use backward slash only in a text string, so I need to escape the backward slash character. And the only way to escape that is by using a backward slash. So that's why I use 2 of them, like this. So that's the reason why I use backward slash here, and also I think in routes right here. And the static versus instance is right here. I use, let's see in here. Whenever I call the route function from the router, I use this double colon syntax, which basically means that I'm calling a static function right here. Let's see. I call the route function on the router. So I call this function right here, and it's static. And whenever I'm in the scope of a static function, I cannot use the instance, I cannot use like the private functions that are not defined as static. So in the router, you'll see that everything in here will be static, and that will enable me to use it from another static function, but I cannot use something that doesn't have the static function defined, because if it doesn't have defined as static, I will need to make an instance of it. So that's why I don't have any static functions, non-static functions in here, because all the functions in here is statics. And I probably could make the whole class static as well, but that's why I use a static. And whenever you call a static function from another static function, you use self. And that's what I do here, get route. and this is not implemented yet for you, but it's going to be implemented in part 28. And when do I need to run composer dump outload? Whenever you create a new class in here. And so in the next tutorial, I create a new class called name validation right here, and I give it a new namespace. So whenever I do that, I need to run composer dump outload, because whenever I do that, it'll be included in the autoload file right here, and it's has some magic stuff going on, and then I will be able to use it in some consumer, for example the router right here. And that's how composer dump outload works. So I hope this was clear and I didn't get like too carried away in all the abstractions there. And if you have any questions, please let me know, because I'm just doing this in the wild, and I'm just like going along with the videos, and the only like option for me to realize that something is incorrect or not good enough, or I don't know, like any kind of feedback, basically, just don't hesitate to make a comment in the video. I highly appreciate it, because that's the only way for me to like make higher quality videos, basically. And apart from that, I hope you guys liked it, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial. So see you, bye.